I've been sharing about this experimental group I'm doing with empath entrepreneurs, where we're using the concept of Anomaly technology to create Anomaly on our platforms and in our businesses and in our personal lives. Primarily, I'm working with empath entrepreneurs because I want to see the effect of playing with this technology on our platforms. So I promised you guys that I would share with you some of the techniques that we're doing in this experimental group so that you could do it as well, because I only accepted 5 people into the personal group. And we started last week, and I have never been more excited about an experiment I'm doing, because I'm allowing myself to be weirder than I've ever been, and also because we're just having fun, which is the first anomaly we're creating in this space. I think as empaths, we tend to swim in the deep end quite a bit, because we feel into the fault lines and we feel into the sensitivities of the planet. We can't help but feel other people's pain and the complexity of pain, that often we are really serious in our work. The first anomaly that I want to apply as I share with you these concepts is to have fun with this, to play with it, to be lighthearted about it. Some of the concepts that I'm going to share with you in this video might be a little triggering, and that's because the other anomaly we're applying here is to include yourself in the equation of your life. And what I mean by including yourself is actually including your pleasure. What a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to being successful as an entrepreneur or a creator, it's essential that we're in touch with our creative technology, with our creative energy. And our creative energy is the same energy as our sexual energy. And most empaths have deep wounds when it comes to their sexual energy, or they have just empathed the wounds on the planet when it comes to sexuality, because sexuality is one of the deepest wounds on the planet. Controlling people's sexuality is how you enslave them. When we feel blocked to our sexuality, it typically blocks our abundance in every way. So the second anomaly that we're really applying here is that rather than doing what most empaths do, which is feel into everything around them and then adjust accordingly, we're using the concept of Tantra, which is actually feeling into your own pleasure first and then adjusting according to your pleasure. This is including your pleasure in the equation, which in and of itself, as I said, is an anomaly for most empaths. I'm actually really excited to see what happens as we experiment with this technology, especially empaths. You guys have heard me say that I believe empaths are a major leverage point on the planet, and that's because we're privy to the fault lines on the planet, where the trauma has been, and where the most vulnerable places are on that fault line. Being privy to that information, usually we have the ability to feel into things before they happen. And because we have that ability to feel into things before they happen, that means we also have the opportunity to shift things into a different direction. So this experimental group I'm doing is going on for the next 3 months, March, April, and May. And our first month, this month in March, our entire focus is on shifting our personal algorithms from lack to abundance, the algorithms in our electromagnetic field. Our algorithms are largely predicted by the patterns of our creative energy, how we use our creative energy. And remember, our creative energy is ultimately our sexual energy. So anywhere where we have blocks in our sexual energy, we usually have blocks in our creative energy, and therefore blocks in our abundance. And so this entire month in the group, we're focusing on understanding inside out our creative patterns, our empathic patterns, our sexual patterns. Because when we can understand our typical patterns, we can leverage them by doing something different in particular leverage point areas, which creates anomaly. That's the whole concept of this. That's the whole concept of this experiment. So in this video, I want to give you 3 ways that you can shift your personal algorithms from lack to abundance. Remember to be lighthearted about this. So number 1, get primal. This is a concept that my friend and colleague Rachel Jensen introduces in our Gen Magic class that we created together. And it's something that she's been pulling through information on for quite a while and will be creating an entire class on. But for the purposes of this video and this experiment, what you need to know is that our primal energy is what turns our magnetism on. And when our magnetism is turned on, we repel things we don't want and we powerfully pull things to us that we do want. I believe the reason why abundance evades a lot of empaths is simply because they do not include themselves in the equation. They don't include their body in the equation, especially. A lot of empaths sort of hang out outside their body or just are really removed from their body. And I think the reason for this is because we feel so deeply, and it's a way to avoid feeling certain things, or it's a way to protect ourselves. But by not being really present to our body and present to our physical experience, we're not tuned into our pleasure. And because we're not tuned into our pleasure, we tend to operate or navigate via the mind rather than the body. That can throw our algorithms completely off when it comes to abundance. And you'll know this is happening if you always feel like what you receive is just sort of slightly off. It's not quite what you want, or it's just the universe doesn't reflect to you your deepest desires. That's usually because you're not in your body. So getting primal is about getting really in touch with your body and getting your instincts turned back on. This is where all the power is in the 3D grid. We can spend all day up in our higher chakras, in the astrals, but if we don't make it concrete and we don't get into the physical body, it's much harder to actually shift things in the 3D realm. So there's lots of different ways to get primal, but one of the things I'm experimenting with in this group, and that I'm challenging the group to experiment with, is getting primal first thing in the morning. So getting primal can mean getting outside and getting your bare feet on the ground, getting in nature and hiking. Obviously, a lot of people aren't going to do that first thing in the morning, so it can also be taking a hot, cold shower that really turns your body on and can kind of flip on those instincts. Also having sex first thing in the morning, especially tantric sex. So the concept of tantra, as I mentioned earlier, is that your pleasure leads it. You're very tuned into your pleasure, and it's not goal-oriented sex. It's not about the orgasm, it's about the connection, and it's about really getting fine-tuned into the most subtle and nuanced pleasures in the body. Tantra in general, I think, is an extremely powerful way to get primal and to get in touch with your primal instincts. Also, yoga is a really powerful way to get primal in the morning. Any sort of self-pleasure that actually connects you to your body in an intimate way. If what you're doing makes you contract or you have a lot of triggers or wounds about it, it's not the best route to take. Getting primal does not have to be sexual in nature, but it ultimately is connected to sexual energy. So just keep in mind that it doesn't have to be sexual, but it definitely can be. So just feel into what feels good for you. One thing I've been doing in the morning as like a self-care, self-pleasure practice is to get up, set the ambiance, and put my yoga mat out and do yoga, letting my body lead it entirely. Just moving in a very slow way, moving in a very intentional way, breathing into my muscles, breathing into my chakras, getting really intimate with the body. So really you could boil this down to connecting to your body and doing it in a way that feels good to you and that makes you that actually connects you to your instincts rather than makes you feel separate from your body. Number 2 is to emanate abundance codes into your psychic grid. So what I mean by that is that along with empaths not including themselves in the equation, often what we will do and what we've been taught to do is to put shields up and approach life as if there's energy coming at us and we have to block ourselves from it. Which that can be a helpful tool if we've been in really toxic situations and haven't known how to have boundaries. But the ultimate expression of life and abundance is communion with our life. The ultimate experience of pleasure is communion. And so if we're always blocking energy, it can actually block out psychically that which we're meant to commune with. And so rather than intimately connecting with the psychic grid, we're in a psychic warfare grid, which keeps us in the lack matrix. And so when I say emanate codes of abundance into the psychic grid, this is a way of intentionally connecting with the psychic grid and with your creative space in the mind. Remember, thoughts actually direct your sexual energy. It directs your creative energy into a realm in which your creative energy fuels. And so if our thoughts are, who is my enemy and who do I need to block from and where are the toxic people and what am I trying to avoid, our creative energy is then fueled into those psychic grids that creates more of what we don't want. I think one of the biggest mistakes empaths can make is not including their emotional intuitive gifts front and center into the equation of their work, front and center into the equation of how we do business, because your empathic abilities are what make you valuable. And so it's important to leverage them. And I believe there's no better way to leverage our empathic gifts than in tuning into the psychic grid and communing with the spaces that feel good to commune with, to emanate abundance codes. What this actually does is, rather than when we go out having the grid around us influence our electromagnetic field, influence our space, affect how we feel, we actually put our algorithm, our emanation, our codes into the matrix, and we influence the matrix rather than the matrix influencing us and our grid. And so setting this up in the morning, actually after you get really in touch with your body and get primal and get your instincts turned back on, then go into a meditation, however you do it with your intuitive gifts. But for me, what I like to do is scan my body first psychically, and just tune into where does it feel good to commune? Where does it feel good to just send energy, send light, to expand my resonance and expand my bandwidth? And then I scan out into the grid itself, especially starting with the grid I live in, my grid space, and I feel into the psychic energy of the grid. And the important thing is to feel into what feels good to commune with. You can also feel into the vulnerabilities of the grid, because this is about strengthening our resonance from the inside out. So as you psychically scan the grid, tune into where does it feel like it needs love? Where does it feel like it needs just light? Where does it feel like we need to commune with the grid? It's like getting your morning news, but rather than listening to the news, you're using your gifts and you're tuning in with your intuitive abilities and your instincts to what's going on in the psychic grid. Now remember, as an empath, you are privy to the fault line on the grid, which makes you able to feel things way before they come. This also means we can be preemptive in the way we commune. If we are emanating abundance codes, we can shift potentials and therefore shift what could happen. This is where all your power is. And I really don't think as a whole we take this that seriously, but if we were intentional about this, and especially intentional together, which is what we're going to be doing on our platforms, we have an opportunity to really shift the direction things are going, to create anomaly in the matrix. So tuning in psychically to the grid is an incredibly important part of creating anomaly, because this, rather than just waking up and letting the algorithms that are already going determine what you focus on and where your energy goes and where your worry goes and where your care goes, this is about you doing it intentionally, without letting news or other people or anything else influence you, before you tune in first, before your own intuitive gifts inform you about what's going on. And again, let's go back to having fun and keeping it light. This is about emanating codes of abundance. So it's about feeling into the most vulnerable spaces in the psychic grid and sending love, sending images of abundance, sending prayers and blessings, strengthening the grid, the psychic grid, from the inside out. Because when we have tower moments, it's always where we are most vulnerable, that we often don't look at all, that we end up slowly eroding, which then collapses the whole tower. And this is true of our psychic grid as well. So emanating codes of abundance in the psychic grid is equivalent to blessing the grid or praying for the grid, but it's deeper than that, because we are intentionally influencing the algorithms of the psychic grid and creating anomaly within it. This is a powerful part of including our resonance in the equation and including our pleasure in the equation, because especially for empaths, if we want to truly feel and experience heaven on earth, you know as well as I do that it matters that the win-win-win is in place. It matters that restoration is taking place. It matters that people are healing, because we feel that shit. So after you tune into the psychic grid, then tune into the planet itself. Because remember, this is about the win-win-win. Win for you, win for others, win for the planet. So you are emanating codes of abundance in the entire psychic grid. First in your own resonance and your own body, then in the psychic grid of the planet, in the hive mind, and then of the planet itself. So then it's tuning into the planet, and where do your instincts naturally take you? Where does your intuition naturally go? It might be to a specific country, a specific place, a specific body of water, something in the physical world that you naturally tune into intuitively. Let your intuitive urge lead you, and then commune with that space. Send love to it. Think of how different the psychic space would feel if we all did this. If we all led our resonance via wanting to commune and connect and restore and heal and revive and expand our bandwidth, expand life, expand our creative abilities. It starts first and foremost through us, through our personal algorithm that's influenced by our creative urge and that's experienced through the physical body. And then in our physical body, we send a certain resonance out, which affects how we psychically feel being alive in the grid. So you see how this works? And then finally, number 3 is commune with your physical space. So now that you've tuned into your body, you've tuned into the grid and sort of set the grid up for yourself in communion. Now it's time to really tune into your physical space. And one of the ways you can do this is to consciously insert abundance codes into things that you do in your physical space all the time. So for example, every single day, typically you take a shower, brush your teeth, open your refrigerator, open your bedroom drawers, get in your bed. All the things that you do on a regular basis that you're always doing, leverage those points by putting abundance codes in them. Anything that's going to trigger abundance to you, anything visual, any sort of intention, any sort of way that you do it or way that you connect with it. And again, be creative and have fun with this. One of the ways I like to do it is, for example, I open my refrigerator every day. So I want abundance codes in my refrigerator that when I open it, because it's something I'm doing every day, it reflects back to me vitality, vibrancy, health. I love having a lot of color. I love having a lot of produce. I love having kombuchas. Anything that makes me feel like I take care of myself. I love myself. The planet has vibrant, beautiful food that I commune with. It's organized, it's clean, it feels good. Things like this actually make a huge difference. Remember, it's often the simplest things that we overlook the most. They compound over time. And those things that are compounding every single day in our lives are the things we do every single day. So anywhere where we can insert abundance codes into these everyday routines that we have, we leverage that opportunity to trigger abundance codes in our thought process, which then triggers abundance in our whole electromagnetic field and psychically connects us more with the grid of abundance, with the matrix of abundance. And I think that it's important to remember that doing the first iteration of something, just doing the first iteration of the thing you want, or of an abundance code, or of how you want your life to feel, it not only brings that energy in and implants it in, but it also gets the momentum going towards that. Instead of always thinking, oh, I don't have enough to do what I want, so I won't do anything. So a way that you can apply this in a more tangible, palpable way using your intuitive gifts is tune into a space in your house that maybe you want to insert more abundance codes in, and just close your eyes and tune into the feeling you want to have when you're in that space. Really get into the space of it. See and make it as sensory as you can. If you're visual, make it as visual as you can, or if you just want to tune into the essence, get really into the feeling you want to create. I did this with my bedroom. When I first moved in, I didn't decorate my bedroom. I didn't do much to it. Every time I walked in, it sort of just felt plain and uninspiring. When I have the money and time to do everything I really want to do with it, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'll just kind of leave it as it is until I have what I need. And I noticed over time it was sort of subtly triggering me. And one day I thought, okay, our bedroom is the most intimate space that we connect with in the house. It's where we sleep. It's one of our most vulnerable spaces. It's often where we're intimate with other people. I realized that my most intimate space in the house, wasn't triggering for me anything that made me feel abundant. And so I sat down in my room and I tuned in and I asked myself, how do I want this space to feel? What's the essence of the feeling? And instantly I started getting images. I saw more plants in my room. I saw more light. I saw bigger crystal pieces. And then I saw myself opening my top drawer, which is like my underwear and sock drawer. And I saw all this gorgeous, colorful lingerie. And it just made me feel like a goddess. And so when I got out of the meditation, I thought, what's the first iteration of that I can do? I ordered some crystals. I got a plant for my room. And I cleaned out my drawers and my closet so that I would have abundance codes all over me. What was so key was that vision I saw of me opening the drawer and my lingerie, because opening my top drawer is something I do every single morning. It's amazing what that one shift, what that one shift, even in my mind, even when I just imagined it and saw it, what that one shift did, how much it anchored in a different feeling in my entire bedroom. So that's one thing you can practice in your own space, is communing with the space and putting abundance codes in the space. Another thing you can do with that same concept is with your self-care routine in the morning. I've been slowing it way down, allowing when I wash my face or take a shower or do my hair or do my makeup for it to be a ritual of self-love and to let my goddess energy out, rather than, oh, I better hurry and get ready to get off to this next thing that I have to do. So whatever ideas you have personally, this is a great space to start. Remember that the whole concept of this experiment is to trigger anomaly in our lives. And we start that through triggering it in our own personal space, in our own body, in the way we interact with the psychic grid, and then of course on our platforms. So month 1 of this experiment is all going to be about understanding our patterns from the inside out. Understanding the patterns of our creative energy, of our sexual energy, of our fault lines. Really learning to insert abundance codes into those patterns, doing something different than we normally do so that we can create anomaly, working with the patterns we already have. So remember, if you guys actually want to be a part of this experiment on a deeper level and get all of the content on fault lines, the content on psychic real estate, on creating algorithms of abundance, all of that content I'm releasing in my private Abundance Matrix Facebook group. This is a mastermind group that I've had for a couple years now. So if you join, you get all the content and all the lives I've posted for the last 2 years, plus all the new content that's coming out. So it's a great way to dive deeper into all of this. But for those of you who just want to follow along on my YouTube channel, I will be sharing some of the highlights and excerpts of the techniques we're using, like this one, and I would love to hear what your experience of it is. If you want to comment in the comment section below. Also, I just wanted to say that YouTube algorithms have changed quite a bit, and people have told me that they don't see my channel or sometimes have been unsubscribed from my channel and didn't know how or why. So I just wanted to remind you that if you like this content and you want to see more of it, click the subscribe button and the notification bell and comment in the section, because it really helps the channel out and it helps this message get to more people, which makes it more exciting. Because I really believe there's a lot of empath entrepreneurs out there that are attempting to do business sort of in the typical business model way, and I really think are asking for and wanting to have more fun with it, to create anomaly, and to leverage their gifts into the equation. So feel free to share this if it resonates with you. If you want to join the Abundance Matrix group, check out the link in the description box. I hope you guys are doing well, and much love.